Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino. Our guest today is Trish Jenkins. Prison was not on the goal chart of successful entrepreneur Trish Jenkins. Conned by a fraud and a breach of the Corporations Act meant losing her multi-million-dollar portfolio, including her family home. As a result, Trish served 8 months in prison. Isolated from her family and surrounded by criminals, Trish could have succumbed to despair. But sometimes treasure is found in dark places. Refusing to remain a victim, Trish became a motivational speaker on change, resilience, and leadership with her own Trish TV Show, podcast, and ministry. She is the author of 2 books on fraud warning signals in finance and relationships, and one documenting her prison experience. Today, Trish is talking to us as business owners about the 3 areas we need to investigate before making major financial decisions. Trish, thank you so much for being on Business Notes today. I have been looking forward to this interview.
Oh, Diane, it's a thrill to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And I should tell everyone that you are in Australia with this accent.
Am.
Yes.
Yeah, g'day, everybody.
Because next to my Southern accent, there's a big difference.
I love that Southern accent.
Yeah. So tell our audience how you, a little bit about your background and how you got your expertise.
Well, Diane, it's a bit of a journey. I'll make it brief, but in the early noughties, the 2000s, my husband and I were into buying real estate, putting it up, get the equity, get it up, and doing investing. And I was also working for a fellow who ran a mutual fund. What I didn't know is that he was a crook, and he was stealing investors' money in what's known as a Ponzi scheme, which many of your audience may know that is where they take your money for an investment, but they don't really invest it. They steal it, and they just keep giving you a little bit of it back so that you think that it's working. But the problem is that more people come in, they've got to get more money in to be able to sustain long term. It's what you remember Bernie Madoff, he went to jail. You guys put him in jail for 150 years. That's impressive. Because 140 is just not going to do it, you know. So,
we don't fool around here.
You don't fool around, that's for sure. Anyway, I didn't know he was doing this, and my job was to make sure people got paid. I was paying them each time. He was releasing money for me to pay them, and then suddenly he stopped paying, and people were coming to me, where's our money, where's our money? And I didn't, it was just really hard because things were tough, and you know, people started to get frightened and worried, and you know, frightened people are frightening people, and they can be very threatening, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I said to him, look, I've got to give them some money. What can I do? And I said, I've got money here, can I give them that? He said, yeah, give them that. So I paid them that, and I didn't steal it, but what I did was not in the right way to do things. What I did was a breach of the Corporations Act. Now, as often happens, it imploded. He was reported to the authorities, and they shut everything down and went through everything. That's when I found out that he had stolen all the money. Diane, I threw up for 3 days straight because my money was in there, $104,000 of our money, our family's money, friends, and so on was in it. And it was just a disaster. I couldn't even look at my children. It was just so horrific. And I was in breach of the Corporations Act. So not only did we go through a liquidation personally, I was charged with fraud. And in 2009, I spent 8 months incarcerated. But during this journey, I know that's a big one to swallow. Pause, let that sink in. But during the process of the liquidation, I had to find, I thought, how did I miss this? How did I miss this? And I'd been to a talk where someone was giving on fraud, and it was an investigator who does this, you know, investigations. And I was talking to him, and I was so passionate about his services that he hired me to promote him. I said, don't talk to anyone until you talk to this guy. And he said to me, look, I wish people knew this stuff because it wouldn't happen. And I was I wanted to write a book. I thought the way to get over this is to find out what have I learned that might help other people. And that was kind of therapeutic for me, to learn how I missed it. And he said, this book you're writing, can you write it for women? Because by the time they call me, they can't afford me. So he helps me write this book. This first one was for women, Dangerous Wealth, what every successful woman needs to know to avoid being ripped off. Bit of a mouthful. I've since written a second one for fellas, for the men, so they don't miss out. And it's what I wished I'd known. If I'd known these things, I would not have got ripped off, and I would have kept my fortune. So that's what I do now, is I speak about that, and also about the prison experience and how to be resilient through tough times.
Wow.
There we
Now,
go.
I know audience members are thinking, well, that could never happen to me. But what does make us vulnerable?
Thinking that could never happen to me. Seriously.
Right.
That really is the first thing that does make people vulnerable. It's often we think because I'm clever, people who are smart, they might be smart in finance, they might be in medicine, just because you're brainy doesn't mean that you're invulnerable to trusting someone clever. These people, they're called con artists. It comes from the word confidence, because they win your confidence. If you're basically a good, honest person, you don't operate in a world where people are constantly lying to you. You don't expect it. If someone tells you that, their job is that, they're a school teacher, you don't question it. You go, oh yeah, which school? They'll tell you, oh, okay. And they're probably telling the truth. They have no reason not to. But these people, they will often infiltrate organizations like churches or Rotary clubs or associations, and they build relationships and they win trust. And you see, when we trust someone, our defenses are down, and we don't ask the same kind of questions that we normally would if we were handed a prospectus, and we didn't know the people. So it's not just people who get emails from Nigeria. It's usually people who we would have considered a friend or even a romance. Mine wasn't a romance, but that's one of the reasons where in my books I very much go into relationship fraud, because when we give our heart, we give our trust, and then we want to actually help the person and invest in what they're doing. That's what makes us vulnerable.
Yes, yes. So in the introduction, we talked about 3 areas that you say we need to investigate. How do we go about doing that?
Okay, so now here's the thing. Your accountant will tell you to examine the numbers and verify the numbers. Check licenses, that's that sort of thing. The 3 areas are the deal, which is due diligence. Everybody will tell you, investigate the deal. The real estate, is it zoned correctly? That sort of thing. The deal. You need to investigate the person. You want to know everything about that person that could be pertinent to their decision making in a deal. And in my books, I go through checklists of questions you need to ask. Things like, have they been involved in lawsuits before? Have they been in trouble before? How do they speak about their ex-partners? Do they speak with bitterness and anger, or do they play the victim? Do they take responsibility for their part? You can't judge someone completely for having been through legal action. My goodness, I know about legal action. But how do they frame it? And can you verify their side of the story? So you investigate the deal, the person, but you know what's really people have just, it doesn't even occur to them. You investigate yourself. You need to know what makes you vulnerable. What are your triggers and hotspots? For example, if you have a weakness for a certain type of person or even a certain type of charity, okay, what they do is they will listen to your conversations. Particularly women, we can be very self-disclosing because we like to be chatty, but they're very good at drawing out and listening to what you're interested in, the sorts of hobbies you have. What are your passions? Particularly people of faith or people who are very much about charitable work. You know, their heart is, you know, that they want to give. And so then the other person will talk about the giving that they've done, or the charity work that they've done, or the orphanage that they volunteered at in Zambia. You know, that and you'll go, wow, what a great person, what a great guy, what a great lady. Or, you know, with women, often they'll play the lady in distress card about how badly they've been treated, and they need that knight in shining armor to help them, and they just need a little help with their legal expenses from their last relationship. And so you've got to know your own heart and what to protect and what makes you vulnerable, because that's what they'll tug on.
Yes, absolutely. And I suspect they dig into your fears as well, so they can leverage those.
Very much so, very much so. Your politics as well, you know, that like all of that stuff, they will align themselves and use the language that your culture uses. Yeah.
So in your books, you cover both financial and romantic fraud. So why would you include romance in a business book? How do they relate, and where were you when I needed you?
Well, when we give our heart, we give our trust, and we want to help the other person. And what these people do, that is their avenue for getting in to getting your personal fortune. And the second biggest target for fraud is single women over 40. The biggest target for fraud are baby boomers. Okay, because they're after your retirement money. Yeah, yep. Now you think very often someone has been married or in a, you know, they've had their divorce, their kids have left home, and now this is a man as well, but very often say with a woman, she will think to herself, you know, she has her crisis, the breakdown, the tears, the whatever they do, and then it's like, I've got to do something for myself. I'm going to rise up now. So they read the self-help books, they get into the groups, they get fitter again, they get healthy, they get some goals, they start a little business, and they find themselves again, and they start getting some success and some confidence, and they have this success, and then they realize, I'm lonely, and they want someone to share it with. And men are when they're single, they want a partner. You know, it's all very well to play the field, but at the end of the day, everybody wants someone to love and share their life with. And that when you want it a lot, it makes you vulnerable, and you can not use the filters because you're lonely. You may not use the filters that you normally would when you don't need it as much. Whoever needs the deal more is at a disadvantage. But it's not just romance too, Diane. It can be a friendship. Mm-hmm. It can be a relative. Ugh, that's really awkward. You know, I really don't recommend going into business with family and friends. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe, but nothing ruins a friendship more than money. And you know, it's just messy. Mm-hmm. And that's why you need to have checklists and questions. Now, I can't promise you won't get ripped off. I can't promise that. But what I can do is minimize the odds. And I've got checklists, lists of questions you need to ask, specific ones, things to look at. It's not exhaustive. There'll be other things that I haven't thought of. And in our modern world with the internet, you know, I'm pretty good at stalking my daughter's friends and romantic interests. I find out very much about them and their extended family and so on. And but yeah, I've probably stayed out of a lot of deals that would have been good. Probably missed out on making some money, but I know I've avoided and sidestepped a lot of dodgy ones that I've been able to recognize straight away. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Better
Yeah.
safe than sorry for sure.
Yeah.
So how can we get over or get past, loss and move forward?
Oh, look, there is a time to grieve. It is okay, absolutely okay. When you lose a loved one, you grieve. When you lose, sometimes people go, oh, it's only money. But, it's your blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. And then there's that self-recriminate, how did I miss it, and beating yourself up. And so I don't recommend beating yourself up, but I think you have to let go of the pride that says, this shouldn't have happened to me because, I'm smarter than this. How did this happen to me? Because we can be angry at ourselves for missing it, and realize that you are only human, that if that person can get deceived, you can too. And you're deceiving yourself if you think if you think you can't be deceived, you're deceiving yourself. Be gentle. And at some point, though, what you need to realize is that it is true. It is money. And I want to be gentle with this because people can be very brutal when they talk about just get over it. It's not a matter of just getting over. What you do need to do, though, is review your values about what's really important in your life. And what I realized was important, and for me, what I was losing was not just the investment, but everything we had was liquidated and paid. Liquidators pay themselves their hourly rate while they're going through your books until there's nothing left. So we lost the investment, then we lost our homes, everything that we had, including where we lived. And I thought to myself, I have a husband and 3 little girls, and I am not going to lose my marriage, because I know when being aware of what can come under attack when you go through a crisis. Do not turn on those you love in your temper tantrum. Don't do it. You think, well, they love me, they have to stick around. They don't, and they may not. Don't expect that they have the mettle to do that if you're having a crisis. I would drive to an empty car park late at night and scream in my car and cry out to God and pray, how did you let this, why didn't you talk to me a bit louder? And I went through all that and ended up just going, yeah, okay, it was me not listening, and missing it. And forgiving yourself, you can find a way to forgive yourself. Certainly your partner, if your partner is the one who lost the money because they were the enthusiastic one for the investment, that's a tricky one. That can really hurt your relationship. My husband never blamed me. He knew I'd been deceived, and he had thought the guy was okay too. But it was my decisions that did these things to us, even though the other fella had. And I had to separate and own what was my failure and what was theirs, because I carried the guilt of everyone else losing money as well. And I had to stop that because they made their own decision. And then, yes, when you look at your values, realize that everybody gets a turn at tough stuff. Everybody gets a turn at something. Some people face cancer. What would you like? Would you like to swap? Who would you swap with? No. Everybody gets a turn at adversity. It's called life. But the important thing is to learn from it and look forward. If you stay dwelling on it and getting resentful and festering, you stop your brain from being freed up to look for new opportunities and
That's
for other
true.
things for you to do. You've got to look forward. And this is the same when you've had a different kind of adversity. You can stay in it, or you can look forward to your future. I made some notes and I said, stop feeling special. You're not special. Look, everybody's special because everyone's an individual like everyone else. But you're not so special that you get to miss out. And I don't want to put fear in people, but really you're not that special. We all get a turn at something, and it's how you respond that determines how well you go on, which is why I love the motivational speaking I do on resilience, because It's about getting up again and moving forward.
Yeah, you can't wallow in victim thinking. You just can't do it. You'll get nowhere.
Mm.
I want to ask you, that first day home after prison in your own bed, and you opened your eyes that morning, you must have thought you were dreaming. What went through your mind that day, and what were some of your first steps to get on the road that you're on now?
It's funny you should say that about dreaming. I came home and it was kind of surreal. And I would actually dream that I was still in prison and not supposed to be, and trying to tell the guards, the officers, I'm not supposed to be here, and they were ignoring me. And then running through corridors trying to escape, and then having that panicked feeling, but if I escape and they catch me, then I'm going to be here for longer. And having that, it was like I was having a panic attack in my dream. And then I would wake up in the night with my heart thumping and shaking and sweating, and my husband would hold me and soothe me, and I'd breathe again. And it was like I couldn't fit in my own skin. I thought I would come home and everything would be fine and we'd all live happily ever after. And I ended up getting some counselling, and the psychologist said, you have PTSD and you'll never get over it. You've just got to learn to live with it. And I said, no, that's not for me. Now, I had to accept that I did have it, and I learned processes to overcome it, and I don't have it anymore. I did get past it because of what I've learned over the last 10 years about being resilient and reframing how I think things and finding the blessing. You'd be surprised at how much blessing there is in an adversity. But I came home and I wanted to go to bed for the rest of my life. I just wanted to pull the covers over and just stay there. But I had a husband who had stood by me. I had 3 little girls. My eldest was 10, and I have identical twin girls who were 7 at the time. And they had been without their mummy for the best part of a year in grade school. They deserved for me to get better. They'd been punished enough, because, you know, it's not just you that gets punished when you go to jail. The whole family is made to be punished.
Yes.
So you have to lift up. Self-pity is your biggest enemy. You need to be ruthless with self-pity. Absolutely ruthless. Tear it out by the roots and be thankful for what you do have, and do everything you can to get well. And if you're a faith person, you have that extra dimension in your faith. When I was talking about getting over things, when you've had losses, for the faith person, and this is not for everyone else, for the faith person, you've got to repent of that idolatry of finance. It's an idol, and you need to repent of that so your heart can get right and get your priorities right. So
right, before we
free one just for them.
Well, that's good, because I want to, that leads into my next question before we get to your books. Just briefly tell us a little bit about your ministry and who you serve in your ministry.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. So, you know, faith people, Christians love a good redemption story. And, you know, the death and the resurrection. And yes, I am. I mean, how embarrassing is this? You know, I didn't come from a criminal culture. I didn't come from a family where, you know, Uncle Joey's back in jail for drugs again. It just wasn't my world. Pastor's kid, yeah, even more embarrassing. Leader in my church. Oh, it was so humiliating. And, you know, it's funny now, it wasn't then. But there's the thing, you know, I did have a lot of support. I had people writing to me to encourage me. I did hold on to my faith. And when I came home, there were people that I'd stayed connected with who said, please come and talk to our group about how you coped and how you managed. You didn't throw away your faith, because some people do. You know, it gets tough, so they go, nah, blow you, I'm out of here. But, you know, And when I was in prison, I wrote journal entries and letters to my friends and family. But in the journal entries, that's where the real gritty stuff happened, where I did business with God. And that one's called Treasures of Darkness. a prison journey. And if people would like to, I've got a couple of YouTube channels, and on one of them, I'm actually reading aloud from my book. But if you can get my book from all my books from my website. But I was asked to share about what God did in that place. And I wasn't Mother Teresa. I wasn't Florence Nightingale. I had my tanties. I spat the dummy. Oh, you don't say dummy, you say pacifier. We have this expression. I spat out the but I learned to forgive on a scale, on a daily. It was just, I teach workshops on how to let go of that stuff and find intimacy with God there. And I don't care what denomination anyone's from. I'll tailor my talk to be what we have in common, and how your faith can be strengthened even through adversity. Because sometimes we think if we're good, good things happen, and if we're bad, bad things happen. That's wrong doctrine. Stuff happens to everybody. Now, if we're stupid and foolish, more stupid things happen. But we don't get a free pass till we're on the other side. So we're going to live with this stuff and go through it and grow through it. And, my little girl, I mean, if nothing ever happened, how could we be of any service to anyone else? And one of my little girls, she was about 9 at the time, I think, and she said, "Mum, I wish this had never happened to our family." And I said to her, "Felicity, look, at your school, there will be children who maybe their daddy doesn't live at home with them. There might be kids at school who somebody might be touching them in a way that they're not supposed to. There'll be kids who don't have a very nice lunch because that's all they can afford. And if you only ever had good things happening, how could you be a friend to them? You now know how to put your arm around that person, that friend at school, and say, I know a little bit about how you feel." And you can encourage them and give them comfort. If nothing ever happened, how would you be of any use to anyone else? And she went, "Wow, Mum, that's right. This is how we grow and we become compassionate human beings."
Right, absolutely. That was well done on your part, and she learned a big lesson, I'm sure. So all 3 of your books are on your website, correct?
Yes, speakertrishjenkins.com, and then it's just the store. Yeah.
Okay, and you have 2 YouTube channels.
Yes, so the YouTube is just youtube.com/Trish Jenkins. That's my business YouTube channel. But I also have, for ministry, I have Trish Jenkins Faith. If you Google me, they should come up. Okay. And the one that is the faith one, I've got my ministry work, and also what do you call it when you have them all in one? You have them in sections.
The playlist.
Playlist, yes. There's a playlist where I've started reading aloud from my book. Don't let that put you off buying the books, though. If you get the books from my website, then I can shoot you a little email and say hi and greet you. Whereas if you get them from Amazon, I don't know who you are, and it's
that's
it's
right.
not
you don't know who buys your book.
No,
that's
but
right.
I will have them drop shipped I have them made in America too, so I'll have them drop shipped to where you are. So that'll be fine.
Save a little postage there. Yes. That's great. Trish, what an inspiring message. And I wish you well in all that you do. And I hope that you inspire as many people as you can. I know that you will. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, Diane. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's just so worth it.
Yes. Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Trish Jenkins, successful entrepreneur, motivational speaker on change, resilience, and leadership with her own Trish TV Show podcast and ministry. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.